You owe me that ring. It was mine first. My ex screamed at my door, after dumping me weeks before I could propose. She brought her friends, tried to force her way in, then watched the police carry her out screaming. It all started weeks before that night. When everything seemed perfect. I was 27, working as an IT tech, living in a decent apartment I could afford with a stable job. I wasn't one for drama, no late night phone calls, no unnecessary arguments. I was steady, predictable, and for a while it worked. I thought I had everything figured out. Then I met Belle. We met at a friend's rooftop cookout. I still remember the way she laughed when I made some joke about being the only one there who didn't have a story about a terrible roommate. She had this way of making everything feel easier, like we were already friends, like I could tell her anything without judgment. She was 26, full of energy, and her smile could light up a room. We clicked fast, way faster than I thought possible. By month 2, we were doing regular date nights, sharing playlists, and she was sneaking into my hoodie stash like she owned the place. By month 4, we were official. Month 6, our relationship was posted on her Instagram like it was something to show off. Couple goals, as she called it. I didn't mind. It felt right. We laughed a lot. We had our inside jokes. She'd curl up next to me on the couch during movies, surprise me with takeout when I worked late, and drag me to food truck festivals on weekends. Life was simple. Good. I was the steady one. Predictable. The guy who could drive at night without getting lost. The guy who remembered her coffee order without needing a reminder. The guy who fixed her squeaky cabinet without being asked. It felt easy, but maybe too easy. The truth is, that's the kind of relationship I thought I was looking for. Stability, predictability. Until things started changing. I didn't notice it at first. But slowly, it started. The shifts in her behavior. The things I could no longer ignore. Belle and her 2 best friends, Tiffany and Kayla, were a package deal. I didn't mind at first. We'd hang out, have brunch on Sundays, and laugh at the absurdity of their inside jokes. Tiffany was the loud one, divorced, strong opinions, and always talking about how men were replaceable. She would sip her overpriced latte, like she had just shared the secrets of the universe. Kayla, on the other hand, was quieter, kind of sweet when it was just the 2 of us. But around Tiffany, she turned into a mirror of everything Tiffany said. I noticed these little things. How Belle would post pictures of me, but never of us. Just me, doing normal things. Holding a drink, standing next to her at an event. It didn't bother me at first, but I started wondering why it always seemed to be about her, and never us. Tiffany's comments about men, how we should pay for everything, how we should be the ones to sponsor everything, started to butt me. I'd sit quietly at dinner with them, letting the comments slide, not wanting to make a scene. But I wasn't blind. One night, we were at a birthday dinner, and Tiffany made one of her usual comments. Honestly, men should just cover everything. If a guy can't afford a few dinners, he shouldn't be dating. She said it loud enough for the entire table to hear. Kayla nodded along like she always did, and the room went awkwardly quiet. I didn't stay silent. I couldn't. I took a sip of my drink, kept my voice steady, and said, "Wild how the loudest independent people always want someone else to sponsor them." The table cracked. Some people smirked. Tiffany, though, her face turned tight like I'd slapped her. After that, everything shifted. Tiffany watched me like she was waiting for me to slip up. Kayla kept her distance, unsure of where to stand. Belle, though, she laughed it off. She always did. But I could feel the tension building under the surface. The cracks weren't obvious yet, but they were there, growing. Still, our relationship stayed strong. Or so I thought. Good days still felt good. But the more time passed, the more I felt like something was off. There was a shift I couldn't explain. A feeling like I was slipping out of the picture even though I was right there, beside her. It wasn't until the weekend that everything fell apart. Belle had become more distant. It started with little things, canceled dates, random girls' nights, with Tiffany and Kayla. I didn't push. I don't chase people. But I knew something wasn't right. Then one weekend, Belle texted me, "Hey, babe. Girls' thing came up. Tiffany wants to talk about something important." No details. No apology. Just a vague message that didn't sit well. Week after week, it was the same pattern. A text here, a rain check there. Tiffany and Kayla started showing up more often. Like, they were the ones in control of her time. Not me. It wasn't until one night when I noticed a photo on social media that everything clicked. Belle had told me she was at her mom's house, but I saw her in a story posted by a mutual friend at a bar, laughing with a margarita in hand. I didn't call her out then. I didn't screenshot it or make a scene. I just filed it away in my mind. I didn't say a word, but when she came home the next week, I brought it up calmly. I wasn't angry. I just wanted an explanation. "I saw you at Fletcher's rooftop, but you told me you were at your mom's." She looked up at me, unfazed. "Oh my God, Dylan, seriously? You're checking up on me now?" I kept my voice steady. "I'm not checking anything. I just saw the post." Tiffany and Kayla were suddenly there, like bodyguards, standing just behind her. Tiffany said, "Honestly, men get so fragile the moment women have lives outside of them." I stared at her. "You don't have a life outside blaming men for yours." The room went quiet. For a second, everything stopped. Tiffany's face tightened and Belle's gaze hardened. That was the night I knew. The shift wasn't accidental. It was a decision. And it wasn't one I had made. The tension that started building after that dinner only grew stronger. I could feel it in every interaction, in the way Belle would cancel plans or offer half-hearted excuses. It was subtle at first, just small things, like her suddenly being too busy when I needed her, or the random girls' nights that seemed to pop up out of nowhere. It wasn't enough to call her out, but it was enough to make me uncomfortable. I could feel myself becoming a side character in her life. And that bothered me more than I wanted to admit. I tried to push it out of my mind. I kept telling myself it was nothing, that maybe she was just going through something, or maybe I was overthinking it. But then came the night that everything shifted, when I realized just how far things had gone. Belle came over to my apartment late on a Friday. She'd texted me earlier that day, saying she was too tired for a date night. But she wanted to stop by after. I was used to it by now. The vague texts, the rain checks. But I still hoped she would show up. When she did, she looked different. She walked in without even a proper greeting, acting like it was just another casual visit. She started grabbing things out of my bathroom, pulling her stuff from the drawers and tossing them into her tote bag. Bag. I just stood there, confused. I didn't say anything at first. I didn't want to make it awkward, but it felt strange. There was no conversation. She wasn't acting like she was coming back for another night together. She was just cleaning out her side of the apartment. After about 5 minutes, I couldn't stay silent anymore. "Don't forget your hair dryer," I said, keeping my tone steady. "It'd be awkward if you had to come back after it's all over." She froze, her hand reached toward a sweater. Slowly, she turned around. "What? Why would you say that?" she asked, her voice trembling. I didn't move. Didn't let myself react the way I wanted to. "You're packing like someone who already wrote her exit speech," I said calmly, almost matter-of-factly. It was like a switch flipped. Her face fell from the fake sadness she'd been wearing to a mixture of confusion and frustration. "Dylan, you're being dramatic," she said, but the shakiness in her voice gave it away. This wasn't genuine. It was an act. "I'm not," I replied, my voice unwavering. "You already packed. I'm not surprised." I saw the irritation rise in her eyes.
"I just don't know how to say this,"
she started, as though preparing for a speech. "You're great, Dylan. You're stable, dependable, and safe. I need something more. I need excitement. I need someone who challenges me, who makes me feel like I'm growing." I could hear the rehearsed tone in her voice. It didn't feel real. I wasn't mad, but I could feel a coldness settling over me. "Right," I said, keeping my distance emotionally. "So, you're done." She faltered for a second, as though she expected me to argue or beg her to stay. But I didn't. "Yeah, we're done," I said again. "You already packed." Her eyes searched mine, as if hoping I'd change my mind. But I didn't move. There was nothing left to say. She grabbed her bag, muttered something about needing space to grow, and walked out. As soon as the door shut behind her, I felt a strange sense of relief wash over me. It wasn't anger. It wasn't sadness. Just clarity. This wasn't a loss. I wasn't losing anything by watching her walk away. I'd spent so much time trying to figure out what went wrong, but now it felt like I could breathe again. The next day, things started to hit differently. I didn't feel the need to chase after her, or try to fix what was broken. I knew that I couldn't make her see what was right in front of her. She had made her decision and I had to respect it. But then the lies started. I saw a post on social media later that week. It wasn't from Belle. It was from a mutual friend, one of those subtle posts that you know isn't meant for you. It somehow feels like a direct message. It was a picture of Belle with a margarita in hand, laughing at a bar with friends. I hadn't heard from her in days, and here she was, living it up while I was left to figure out what had happened between us. I didn't respond. I didn't text her or confront her. I just let it sit in my mind, like a file I could pull out when the time was right. When I did finally bring it up, I did it calmly. Belle came over one afternoon to pick up the last of her things. I was making dinner, but when she walked in, I didn't immediately say anything. I waited. "Hey, I saw you at that rooftop bar last weekend. You told me you were at your mom's," I said, letting the words hang between us. Her eyes flickered and she quickly turned away, busying herself with her things. "Oh my God, Dylan. Seriously. You're checking up on me now?" She snapped, as if I had no right to ask. "I'm not checking anything," I said, keeping my voice steady. "I just saw the post. That's all." The room went quiet. Tiffany and Kayla were standing behind her, watching like they always did. Tiffany raised an eyebrow, like she was ready to jump into the conversation. But I wasn't talking to her. Belle crossed her arms. "Why are you making this such a big deal?" "I didn't lie," she said, her voice rising, and I could see the defensiveness creep in. I shook my head. "You didn't lie. Then why didn't you tell me where you were?" Before she could respond, Tiffany interjected. "You don't need to check on her. She's a grown woman. If she says she was at her mom's, then that's where she was." I stared at her. "And you're her spokesperson now?" Kayla looked unsure of what to do, glancing between the two of us, like she was waiting for permission to take sides. But I wasn't fighting this battle anymore. I turned back to Belle. "I'm not mad. I just don't like being lied to, and I'm done pretending everything's fine when it's not." Belle looked at me, a mix of anger and confusion in her eyes. I could see the moment she realized I wasn't going to chase her or beg for answers. That was the moment everything changed. She didn't have control over me anymore. And for the first time, I wasn't afraid of the truth. I didn't want to believe it at first, but the more I thought about it, the more it made sense. Belle was pulling away, and I had started to notice the small signs, the changes in her behavior, that I couldn't ignore anymore. At first, I chalked it up to the natural ebb and flow of a relationship. People get busy, things happen. Right? But as the weeks went on, it became impossible to deny. Belle wasn't just busy. She was distancing herself from me, little by little. It started with the canceled plans, the vague excuses. The first time, I didn't think much of it. She said she had to meet with her friends, or that she had work to catch up on. It wasn't until the second week that I started to feel like something was off. She didn't make time for me like she used to. And I noticed the conversations becoming shorter, the affection fading. Every time I asked her what was going on, she'd reassure me that everything was fine. But I wasn't convinced. One weekend, she told me she was going out with Tiffany and Kayla, but she was vague about where they were going. Normally, she'd give me all the details, but this time, she just said it was girls' night, and that she'd catch up with me later. I didn't hear from her until the next day, and even then, it was just a quick text. No call, no explanation. It hit me hard. I could feel the distance between us growing. And I wasn't sure how to fix it. I wasn't the type to chase someone, but I also wasn't the type to ignore what was happening right in front of me. This was different. I felt like she was pulling away on purpose. It wasn't just that she was busy. It was as if she didn't want to be with me anymore. I didn't know what had changed, but I knew I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. So, I decided to confront her. I wasn't angry, I didn't want to fight. I just needed to understand what was going on, to hear the truth, no matter how difficult it might be. The next time we saw each other, I asked her directly. I'd been holding it in for weeks, and I couldn't keep pretending I didn't see what was happening. Belle, what's going on? You've been distant. Is there something you're not telling me? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. She looked at me for a moment, her eyes shifting, but she didn't say anything right away. I could see her thinking, deciding whether or not to tell me the truth. Finally, she took a deep breath and spoke. But it wasn't what I expected. I'm just going through some stuff, she said, her voice flat. I don't know how to handle everything. It's not about you. I just need some space. I nodded slowly, trying to keep my composure. Space. I repeated. From me. Or from us. Her expression hardened, and I could see the walls go up. She crossed her arms defensively. It's just, I don't know if I'm ready for this right now. I'm not saying it's over. I just need to figure some things out. I felt my chest tighten. It was like a punch to the gut. I don't get it, Belle. Everything was fine a few weeks ago. We were good. What changed? She looked away, her gaze drifting to the side. I'm not the same person I was when we first got together. I'm different now. I'm trying to grow, and I don't know if you're part of that. The words hit me like a brick. It was like she was telling me, without actually saying it, that I wasn't enough for her anymore. That everything we had wasn't enough to keep her in the relationship. I could feel the knot in my stomach tightening as the realization hit. This wasn't just about her needing space. It was about her wanting out, slowly and quietly, without actually saying it out loud. She didn't want to break up, but she didn't want to stay either. I don't want to be here if I'm not wanted, I said, the words coming out before I even realized it. If you don't want to be with me, just say it. Don't drag it out. Don't make me chase you. For a moment, she didn't respond. She just stood there, her arms crossed tightly, her face unreadable. I could feel the tension hanging in the air, thick and suffocating. Finally, she spoke, her voice quieter now. I don't know what I want right now. I just need time, she said, but there was something in her tone that made my stomach drop. It wasn't the truth. It wasn't the full truth. But it was all she was willing to give. I'm done waiting for you to figure it out, I said, feeling a surge of clarity. The walls I had built around myself started to crumble. I wasn't going to beg for answers anymore. I wasn't going to let her play with my emotions. I wasn't to keep pretending that everything was fine when it clearly wasn't. She blinked, startled by my words, but I didn't give her a chance to respond. I turned away and walked out of the room, leaving her standing there, her expression unreadable. It wasn't the way I wanted things to end, but it was the only way they could. I didn't hear from her for days after that, and when I did, it wasn't what I wanted to hear. It was a text, just a simple message saying she needed space. That's it. No explanation, no apologies. Just more of the same. And that's when I realized she was already gone, emotionally. Even if she hadn't walked away physically yet. But I wasn't going to chase her. I wasn't going to beg her to stay. I couldn't keep holding on to someone who didn't even want to be there. The days following Belle's final words were a strange mix of clarity and confusion. I didn't expect to feel as calm as I did. I thought I'd be angry, hurt, or maybe even desperate to fix things. But instead, I felt something I hadn't expected: relief. The weight of trying to make sense of her actions, trying to figure out what went wrong, had been lifted. She wasn't going to be the person I thought she was. She wasn't the person I needed her to be. But that didn't mean I wasn't hurt. In fact, I was hurt more than I cared to admit. It wasn't just the breakup. It was the way she had pulled away without explanation. The way she'd pretended everything was fine while making me feel like I was the problem. I had put in effort, time, and love into something that was slowly falling apart without me even knowing. That realization hit harder than any words could have. I spent the next few days trying to distract myself. I threw myself into work, focused on the gym, and tried to keep my mind busy. But there was always this nagging feeling in the back of my mind, like something was unresolved. Something was unfinished. I kept telling myself that it was over, that I had done everything I could, but I still couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to the story. Then came the night I finally decided to confront the last piece of the puzzle, the engagement ring. I had bought it weeks ago, before Belle pulled away. I'd planned to propose, but I never got the chance. I had kept the ring hidden in my sock drawer, under a stack of folded clothes. I'd almost forgotten about it, pushed it to the back of my mind. But now it felt like I was holding on to something that no longer had a place in my life. I pulled it out that night, staring at it for what felt like an eternity. It wasn't some cheap placeholder ring. It was a beautiful, clean-cut band with a center stone that fit Belle's style perfectly. It was timeless. I thought it would be the start of something real, something lasting. But it wasn't. It was just a symbol of what could have been, a future I'd never get to have with her. I thought about throwing it away, but I couldn't. Not yet. It was too soon. And honestly, a part of me still wondered if I should just hold on to it, just in case. But the more I stared at it, the more I realized that holding on to it meant holding on to a version of Belle that didn't exist anymore. So, I put it back in the drawer and I let it go. The next few days were quiet. I didn't hear from her. Not that I expected to. But I was still on edge, waiting for something to happen, waiting for her to reach out, or for some final piece of drama to unfold. I didn't chase her, didn't text her, didn't even look at her social media. I stayed busy, kept my head down. But I knew I wasn't done yet. I still hadn't faced the full fallout of what had happened. That came when I found out what Belle had started telling people. It wasn't enough that she'd walked away from me. Now, she was rewriting everything. A mutual friend sent me a screenshot of a message from her to their group. Something that was never meant for my eyes. He's too immature, decent in bed, and honestly not worth the rest of my life. She'd written. I need to level up. I didn't respond to the message, Didn't send her a long text about how disrespectful it was. I didn't need to. I just screenshotted and saved it. A receipt. That's all it was. A receipt for the lies she was trying to spread. I wasn't gonna let her control the narrative. Not this time. The more I thought about it, the more I realized something. This wasn't just a breakup. This was a manipulation. Belle had never been interested in the relationship the way I thought she was. She was using me for the image of stability, for the reputation it gave her, and when I stopped being interesting to her, she moved on. The engagement ring, the photos, everything, it was all part of the act. I wasn't gonna let her get away with it. She could walk away, but she wasn't going to walk away with the story she was telling. A few days later, I got a message from Kayla. It was strange. Kayla didn't usually reach out to me. She was always more of a passive bystander in Belle's life. This time it was different. She told me she needed to talk, and I could tell from the tone that something had shifted. I agreed to meet her, but I didn't know what to expect. When she showed up at my apartment, she looked nothing like the Kayla I knew. She was quiet, almost anxious, with no makeup and her eyes red like she'd been crying. I could tell something was off right away. She wasn't her usual self, and whatever was going on, it wasn't just about Belle. I need to tell you the truth about what happened, she said, sitting down on the edge of the couch. She seemed hesitant, unsure of how to begin. Belle never dated you because of you. She just liked the idea of having a boyfriend. She liked saying she had someone stable, someone who looked good on paper. I sat back, shocked but not surprised. This wasn't a confession I had expected, but it made sense. It explained everything. The way she had treated me. The way she had pushed me aside without ever really giving me a chance to know her. She told us you were perfect for the image. Kayla continued, her voice low. You had a steady job, a nice apartment. You were dependable. It made her look good. I didn't know what to say to that. The words stung, but I couldn't deny them. They felt true. I was just a prop in Belle's carefully curated life. Then Tiffany kept pushing her to look for something more exciting. Kayla added. She said, you were just bare minimum. That she deserved more. I swallowed hard, feeling the weight of her words. So, I was just a placeholder, I said quietly. Until something better came along. Kayla nodded, her face full of regret. I let Tiffany influence me too. I didn't think for myself. I just followed her lead, because I didn't want her to turn on me. I could see the guilt in her eyes, and for a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. She wasn't the one who had hurt me, but she had enabled Belle's behavior, had stood by while things fell apart. Kayla took a deep breath before speaking again. I just wanted you to know. Belle never planned on staying with you. She's not the person you think she is. I wish I had seen it sooner. I nodded slowly. You don't have to apologize, I said. But I appreciate you telling me the truth. It means something. Kayla looked down at her hands, then back up at me, and for the first time, she seemed to be speaking from her own heart, not Tiffany's. I just want you to know that she's spiraling now. She thought you'd come running after her. But you didn't. That was when it hit me. I wasn't just dealing with a breakup. I was dealing with someone who had manipulated me for her own gain, who was now angry because she couldn't control me anymore. I took a deep breath, feeling the final pieces fall into place. She can't control the narrative anymore, I said quietly, and I'm not going to let her. The days following my conversation with Kayla felt like the calm before a storm. I tried to go about my life as usual, but the weight of what she told me stayed with me. Belle wasn't the person I thought she was, and now it was clear that everything had been part of some carefully constructed narrative. She had wanted the image, the stability, the public appearance of a perfect relationship, but none of it was real. And I wasn't just angry at her. I was angry at myself. I had been so caught up in the idea of what we were that I hadn't seen the cracks forming. I had let myself believe that we were on the same page, that she actually cared. But now, I saw it for what it really was, a game to her. Something to pass the time, an experiment in control. And I had been too blind to notice. I spent most of the next week in a haze. I kept replaying everything in my mind, trying to find the moment when it all went wrong. I couldn't pinpoint it, though. Was it the day I bought the ring? Was it when Belle started distancing herself? Or was it when Tiffany's influence over her became too obvious? I couldn't help but feel betrayed, not just by her, but by the way she'd played me, pretending to be someone she wasn't. She had manipulated me, and I hadn't even realized it until it was too late. But I wasn't going to let her keep controlling the narrative. That's when it happened, the message from Belle. She reached out, and it was everything I'd expected, and nothing I had wanted. She texted me late at night, just after I'd finished cleaning up from dinner. It was a simple message, but it stung. "We need to talk," she said. I made a mistake. I almost didn't respond. I knew what was coming, and I didn't want to hear it. But something in me snapped. I couldn't let her rewrite everything in her favor, not after everything I had already learned. I opened my phone, typed a reply, and hit send before I could second-guess myself. "You made a mistake. You don't get to rewrite this. Not anymore." There was a long pause before her response came through. I almost didn't want to read it, but I did anyway. "I'm sorry," she said. "I've been thinking about everything. I didn't mean to hurt you. I was just scared." I scoffed at the message. She was always scared of something, always running from whatever reality didn't fit into her carefully curated life. "Sorry doesn't fix this, Belle. You don't get to manipulate me and come back with an apology like it erases everything." The phone buzzed again almost immediately. "I'm not trying to manipulate you. I just want a chance to explain. Please." I stared at the screen, my heart pounding. I knew what was happening. She wasn't sorry. She wasn't trying to make things right. She just wanted to control the story, to make herself the victim. The problem was, I was done. I wasn't going to play her game anymore. I wasn't going to chase her or beg her to come back. I was done pretending that we were anything more than had drifted apart, because we wanted different things. I took a deep breath and typed my final response. "I'm not doing this anymore, Belle. I don't need your apologies. I need honesty. And if you can't give me that, then we're done. For good. I set the phone down, feeling a strange mix of anger and relief. This was the moment. The point where I finally took control. I wasn't going to let her dictate how I felt anymore. The next day, I got the call. It wasn't from Belle. It was from her. Tiffany. She was relentless, as always, demanding to know what had happened. She wanted me to explain, to take responsibility for the breakup. I wasn't surprised. She had always been the one pulling strings. Always the one trying to make herself the hero of whatever drama was unfolding. But I wasn't playing along this time. I'm done with this, Tiffany, I said, my voice calm but firm. You and Belle can try to rewrite whatever you want, but I'm not going to be part of it. There was a silence on the other end, followed by a harsh laugh. You think this is over, Dylan? You really think you've won? I don't care about winning, I replied. I just care about moving on, and I am. I hung up before she could say anything else. The weight I had been carrying for so long felt lighter, as if a heavy burden had finally been lifted. I wasn't going to let Belle or Tiffany dictate my life anymore. I wasn't going to let their lies define me. I could feel the shift inside me, the final piece of the clicking into place. I was free. I didn't need their approval. I didn't need to explain myself. I just needed to live my life, to move on, and to let go of the past. A few days later, the phone call came that I had been expecting, though I wasn't ready for how it would hit me. It was from Kayla. She was crying. Dylan, she said, her voice shaky. I should have told you this earlier. I should have told you the truth. Belle. She's telling everyone that you proposed to her and that she rejected you. I felt my blood run cold. She's telling people that. Kayla let out a deep sigh, her voice filled with guilt. Yes, she said it was a gift. That she couldn't say no because you bought it. But it's all a lie. I know it is. I've seen how she's trying to make you look like the bad guy. I leaned back in my chair, staring out the window. The city was quiet, too quiet. I could hear the hum of traffic below, the soft rustling of trees in the breeze. But inside, my thoughts were loud. This wasn't just a breakup anymore. It was a war, and I wasn't about to lose. I'm not going to get away with it, I said, my voice low. She's not going to control this narrative. Not anymore. Kayla was silent for a moment. I don't know if I can help you, Dylan, she said quietly. But I won't stand by and watch her destroy you either. I smiled to myself, not because I was happy, but because for the first time in a long while, I felt like I had a real ally. We'll figure it out, I said. It's time for her lies to come to an end. It felt like the calm before a storm when the photo was finally posted. I had decided to take control of the narrative, to stop letting Belle and her circle dictate how the story was told. It wasn't about revenge. It was about clearing up the lies she had spread. I wasn't going to let her continue pretending that she had rejected my proposal, that she had any power over me. So, I made the decision. I called Kyla, and we agreed to take the picture together. Simple, clean, nothing dramatic. Just a casual shot with the engagement ring on the coffee table between us. No words, no explanation. Just the image itself. It wasn't about making a statement. At least not an obvious one. It was about putting the truth out there. In a way she couldn't ignore. She had manipulated everyone into thinking she had been the one in control. But this was my moment to let people see the real story. We staged the shot quickly, me sitting back on the couch, Kayla next to me, and the ring box in plain sight. It was almost too easy. It didn't take much effort. All we had to do was let the truth speak for itself. When the photo went live, I didn't expect it to blow up as quickly as it did. It didn't take 5 minutes before I saw the first notification pop up on my phone. Belle had already seen it. I didn't need to check, I knew. She had to have seen it. It wasn't just a picture, it was the proof. The proof that she had lied. The proof that she had never been proposed to. That she had never been rejected by me. It was all out in the open now, and there was no turning back for her. Kayla texted me soon after, her message almost frantic. "Dylan, she's losing it. She called me 5 times. She's freaking out. I don't think she expected you to do this." I just stared at the screen, feeling a strange calmness wash over me. This was it. The moment I had been waiting for. Belle couldn't manipulate anyone anymore. The truth was out there, and it was only a matter of time before she had to face the consequences of her actions. A little while later, the knock on the door came. It wasn't a soft tap. It was loud, demanding, almost frantic. I opened the door, already knowing who it was. Belle stood there, her face flushed with anger, her eyes wide with disbelief. Tiffany was right behind her, arms crossed. As usual, ready to pounce on any opportunity to defend Belle. And Kayla. Well, she was there too. But she looked uncomfortable. Like she didn't belong in this confrontation. "Dylan, we need to talk," Belle said, her voice tight with frustration. I didn't move. "You can start by asking," I said, keeping my tone steady. I wasn't going to let her walk in and take control. Not this time. Tiffany pushed past me, her voice rising immediately. "You posted a manipulative photo to humiliate her. What is wrong with you?" I looked straight at her. "You're loud. Not right. Move back." Tiffany froze, her mouth open but no words coming out. For the first time, she was caught off guard. And I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction of getting the last word. Belle's eyes darted around the room. And then she looked down at the coffee table. She saw the ring box there, sitting innocently, and her expression shifted from angry to something else. Something darker. "You bought me a ring?" she asked, voice rising. "You were going to propose?" I nodded, keeping my calm. "Yeah. Before you dumped me." Her eyebrows shot up, and her mouth opened. But no words came out at first. I could see the confusion, the anger, and the fear all mixing in her eyes. She had thought she could just walk away from this. But now the truth was staring her in the face. She had no control over the narrative anymore. "Give me the ring," she demanded, stepping forward. I shook my head slowly, taking a step back to give myself some space. "No. You don't get to collect prizes from a future you walked away from." Tiffany stepped forward, her voice sharp. "You don't understand, Dylan. Engagement rings are gifts. Under the law, once a ring is bought with the intent to propose, it legally belongs to the fiancé." I didn't hesitate. No proposal, no ring on your finger. It stayed in the box. Belle's eyes narrowed as she took a step closer, her voice suddenly harsh. You owe me that ring. It was mine first. I crossed my arms, not budging. You don't get to claim something you never earned. The ring was mine to give, and I never gave it to you. It's not yours. The silence stretched between us, heavy and thick. Tiffany's mouth opened and closed a few times, but nothing came out. I could see her trying to find a way to regain control, but it was slipping from her grasp. Kayla looked between us, her face pale, unsure of where she fit into all this. Belle's eyes darted to Tiffany, and that's when I saw it. She wasn't looking for support. She was looking for validation. She was looking for someone to tell her she was right. But no one was speaking up. Tiffany, for the first time, was speechless. Kayla just stood there, her eyes wide, like she couldn't believe what she was seeing. I took a deep breath and held my ground. You can scream all you want, but you're not getting the ring. Not after what you did. Belle stepped closer, her hand shaking as she pointed at the box. Give it to me. You owe me. You don't get to make the rules. I didn't move. I'm not giving you something you never had a claim on. I'm not playing your game anymore. Her voice cracked as she raised it. You can't do this to me. You can't take this from me. But the truth had already set in. The whole room knew it. I wasn't the one in the wrong here. I wasn't the one who had lied, who had manipulated the situation. Belle was the one trying to rewrite history, trying to control the narrative. Fine, I said, my voice low. If you want to keep lying to yourself, you can. But you won't control this anymore. The truth's out. It's not mine to fix. And with that, the story I had let Belle control for so long finally ended. The last piece fell into place. The days after the confrontation with Belle and Tiffany felt like a whirlwind. The tension that had been building for so long finally seemed to burst open, and everything started to change. I had made my stand, exposed the truth, and it felt like the world was shifting around me. But with that shift came something unexpected. People started to take sides. Some supported Belle blindly, as they always had. Others, though, saw things for what they were, and that's when everything started to unravel. I didn't expect the calls to come, especially not from Belle's parents. When they first reached out, it was full of outrage, accusations, and anger. Her mother's voice was sharp and frantic. What did you do to my daughter? She demanded. You've ruined everything. She was fine until you started playing your games. Her father's voice was less emotional, but just as harsh. You don't know what you've done, do you? You think you've won. She was just trying to do what's best for her. She didn't deserve this. It hit me like a ton of bricks, but I wasn't shaken. They didn't know the truth. They were only hearing Belle's side, the version she had spun to fit her narrative. And now, they were coming after me because they didn't want to face what she had really done. I didn't do anything, I said calmly. Belle tried to force her way into my apartment, demanded a ring she wasn't ever given, and then assaulted me in front of 2 officers. There was a brief silence, a shift in their tone. Her father came back with, "That's not what she told us." I took a deep breath. I wasn't going to argue with them. I had nothing to prove. Ask the police for the report. You'll hear the truth. The call ended, but the weight of it lingered. It was clear to me that Belle was manipulating everything, and everyone around her. She had people believing she was the victim, but the truth was out there, and I wasn't about to let her twist it. Later that day, I got another call, this time from Kayla. She sounded different now. It was no longer the hesitant, unsure voice I had heard before. This time, it was firm, like she had finally found her footing. "Dylan, I think you should know," she said, her voice shaky. "Belle's already lying from jail. She told her parents that you shoved her first. She's trying to make it look like you attacked her. And now she's telling everyone you stole. Everyone you stole the ring out of spite." I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. "Of course she is," I muttered, though part of me still felt the sting of it. I wasn't surprised. This was just another attempt to control the narrative, to make herself the victim in a situation where she had no place to stand. Kayla continued, her voice soft. "She's panicking, Dylan. Her whole story is falling apart, and she's scared. I don't think she realizes how much she's lost. She's lost everything already," I replied, my voice hardening. "She just doesn't know it yet." Kayla hesitated, then added, "I'm sorry for not speaking up sooner. I was too scared to say anything before. But I know now I can't stay silent." I didn't know what to say. Her words were a relief, but they also confirmed something I'd already known. This whole mess wasn't just about a breakup. It was about Belle's inability to take responsibility, her need to rewrite everything in her favor. "Thank you for telling me the truth," I said quietly. "I think that's all I need to hear. Now we just have to make sure she doesn't get away with it." The conversation ended with a promise, one that felt like a quiet resolution. Kayla was no longer the bystander in this story. She was part of the solution, part of exposing the truth. But I knew that wasn't the end of it. It couldn't be. Belle was going to fight this, and she wasn't going to give up easily. She wasn't used to losing control. The next morning, I woke up to the reality that everything had changed. My phone was blowing up with notifications. I didn't need to check to know what had happened. It was what I had expected. Belle's Instagram story had exploded, full of angry rants and half-truths. She was playing the part of the wronged woman, the one who had been heartlessly dumped and left with nothing. And in her mind, this was the story she wanted to sell. But the truth was out there. The truth was in that photo we had posted, the one that contradicted everything she was trying to say. People were starting to ask questions. The damage was done. Then, just as quickly as the story had exploded, it started to fall apart. Tiffany, always the loudest voice in the room, posted a rant on her story. She went on about how men always got away with everything, how the patriarchy protected them, and how women like Belle were just being punished for defending themselves. She even tried to turn the police response into a political statement, twisting it to fit her narrative. But her words, as usual, were full of holes. Within minutes, the truth started to break through. Someone, thankfully, a mutual acquaintance, posted the security footage from the building's hallway. The video was clear. There was no denying it. The footage showed Belle charging toward me, slamming into the doorframe, and then the police arriving moments later to arrest her. Tiffany's post disappeared within seconds, replaced by a half-hearted apology and a vague message saying, "Editing this for clarity." Misinformation going around. But the damage was done. The lie she had been spinning for weeks unraveled in a matter of minutes. Kyla texted me shortly after. "It's falling apart, Dylan. Belle's freaking out, and Tiffany is trying to cover for her. But people are seeing the truth now." I didn't respond right away. I didn't need to. The truth was doing its job. Belle's lies couldn't hold up anymore. The next few days were a blur of calls, messages, and notifications. The story spread quickly. People who had once supported Belle were starting to question her. Kayla even posted her own version of events, showing the footage and explaining what had really happened. She was done staying quiet. And she wasn't afraid of what Tiffany would think. It felt like everything was crashing down around Belle. But this time, she had no one to blame but herself. She had created this mess. She had tried to control everything and everyone. But the moment she pushed too far, the truth came rushing out, and there was no escaping it. It wasn't just about the ring anymore. It wasn't about the breakup or the lies. It was about the consequences of her actions catching up with her. The same lies she had used to manipulate people were now the very thing that had destroyed her. A few weeks after everything had settled, I found myself standing in front of the mirror, staring at the reflection I hadn't seen clearly in months. I was different now. I wasn't the same person who had blindly trusted Belle, the person who had hoped for something that wasn't ever going to happen. The emotional fog had lifted, and what remained was clarity and peace. It was strange, that feeling of peace. I hadn't expected it, not after everything that had gone down. But here I was, feeling like I could breathe again. The weight of the past couple of months, the confusion, the anger, the feeling of betrayal, was slowly fading, and in its place, something else was growing. Something I hadn't known I needed. I had learned the hard way, but in the end, I had learned. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was in control of my own story. I didn't chase after the lie Belle had tried to tell. I didn't seek revenge or try to humiliate her the way she had tried to do to me. I simply let the truth unfold. Let her lies fall apart on their own. And now, it was over. The people who had once supported her, who had been fooled by her narrative, were beginning to see the truth. I didn't have to do anything else. But there was still one last step left in all of this. The engagement ring. The symbol of what could have been, but never was. It had sat in my drawer for weeks now, gathering dust. A reminder of a life that wasn't mine to live. I hadn't known what to do with it at first. Part of me wanted to hold on to it, to keep it as a memento of the person I had been, the one who had believed in a future with Belle. But another part of me, maybe the stronger part, the part that had come out of all of this unbroken, knew I needed to let it go. I drove to the shop where I had bought it. The same place I had picked out the ring. thinking it was the start of something special. It felt surreal, walking in there with it now, knowing how much had changed. I handed the ring to the clerk, who took it gently from my hand. It was no longer mine. It had never really been mine. "Are you sure about this?" the woman asked, her voice kind but questioning. I nodded. "I'm sure." She took it, placed it in a small velvet pouch, and handed me the money in exchange. I felt a small, almost imperceptible shift in my chest as I walked out of the store. It wasn't regret. It wasn't sadness. It was simply the final step of letting go. As I made my way back to my apartment, I felt lighter. The money in my pocket wasn't important. What mattered was that I had closed the door on something that no longer served me. The ring, the lies, everything. It was all behind me now. Back in my apartment, I put the money in the drawer and sat down on the couch. I didn't need anything else to prove to myself that I was moving forward. I had done what needed to be done. The rest was up to me. It wasn't long after that I started to feel the full weight of what had happened. Not the weight of betrayal, but the weight of growth. I wasn't who I had been a year ago. I had faced the truth of my relationship with Belle. I had confronted my own emotions, and I had emerged stronger. The phone buzzed on the coffee table, breaking my thoughts. It was a message from Kayla. "I wanted to thank you for everything," she wrote. "I know I didn't speak up sooner, but I'm glad you found the truth. And I'm glad you're moving on. You deserve better, Dylan." It was simple, but it meant something. Kyla had been the one who saw through the lies, the one who had stepped up when it mattered. She had been afraid, but she had found her voice in the end. I smiled to myself as I read her message. "Thank you, Kayla," I typed back. "I appreciate everything you did. I think we both learned a lot." I set my phone down, feeling a strange sense of closure. This chapter of my life was over. I didn't need to hold on to the past any longer. The person I had been in that relationship wasn't who I was now. I was someone new, someone who had learned to stand up for himself, someone who had learned that letting go didn't mean failure. It meant growth. A few days later, I was sitting at a cafe, drinking my coffee when I ran into a familiar face. It was Jessica, a friend I hadn't seen in a while. She waved when she saw me, a big smile on her face. "Dylan, it's been forever." We sat down together, and I couldn't help but feel a sense of ease in her presence. She asked me about my life, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I had to hide anything. I told her about the breakup, about Belle's lies, about everything that had happened. "You're doing better now, though, right?" Jessica asked, her voice soft but knowing. I nodded, a smile tugging at my lips. "Yeah, I'm good. I'm finally in a place where I'm not looking back." And it was true. I wasn't looking back anymore. I had let go of everything that was holding me back. The lies, the manipulation, the fear. I was moving forward. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was on the right path.